Alrighty, folks, we got to talk serious. All this talk of a ripper rally in the month of June has people saying, you know what? If we have this ripper rally in June where the stock market goes beast mode, I'm going to sell out of all my stocks and I'll wait to buy back in toward the end of the year, 2023 or something like that. That's the way I'm hearing some folks talk, right? And I want to kind of talk about this for a moment here, and I want to kind of explain and show you guys some very important stuff. So if you're thinking about that, you at least have some stuff to consider if you're going to make a move like that, right? And I feel like it's my job being on YouTube to at least give folks different things to consider, different situations to consider. So, you know, whatever move you make out there in the markets, whatever move you make, and if we rip in June and you want to make that move, that's your move to make, right? But I at least want to give you some very important things to consider in this video. I'm going to show you some stuff you're not going to see anywhere else that I think is very important to look at, so you have some insights on if you want to make a move like that, like, you know, considering that, right? This is the public account, by the way, and kind of the current positions I have there, right? So first thing you have to understand is if we do have this ripper rally in June, when let's say the stock market has a great month, right? NASDAQ goes beast mode, Russell goes beast mode, the S&P, whatever, right? And growth stocks start to come back big time. Something I think you should understand is if we even came back big in June, we'd still be down big. Like, let's say the NASDAQ had an unbelievable month in June, right? And let's say we go all the way back to 13,000. That would be a huge move in a matter of a month, right? Well, we would still be down huge. Like we entered this year around 16,000 or so in the NASDAQ, right? The NASDAQ, even as of today, and it started to bounce back, the NASDAQ as of today is down like 26%. So, you know, you got to understand, when you have been hurt this bad, it's a long way back, right? And so even if we have a ripper rally in June, we're still going to be down huge, okay? And so that's at least something to consider. Now, some folks are looking at that and they're like, well, yeah, but we could go down further, right? And that's fair play, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, right? But I mean, you look at a stock like Honest, right? Honest is down 59%. If this stock went all the way to $5, right, by the end of June, let's say, that would be a massive move, by the way, from 330 to 5. Like, that's insane percentage-wise. It's still down massively this year, the year to date, right? It's like that stock's still down massively. If you look at a stock like PayPal, right? If this stock went up 50% in June, 50%, which probably is not happening, but let's just say hypothetically that happened, that would put the stock price at about $120. Guess what? At $120, PayPal is still down massively year to date, because this is a stock that entered this year at $200, right? If you look at a stock like Shopify, this is shocking. This is insane. This is literally shocking, okay? If Shopify went up 100% in June, which is more than likely not happening, okay? But let's say the stock doubled in a month. That would be like some sort of epic short squeeze, plus all the longs want to pile in. That'd be ridiculous, okay? But let's say that happened. This stock, if it literally doubled, it would be a $700 a share. The stock entered the year over $1,400, so which would mean it's still down over 50% year to date. Think about that for a moment. If this stock doubled in a month, it would still be down 50% year to date. How insane is that? So when you're looking at these stock prices, I think it's very important to understand that it is such a long climb to anywhere close to where we used to be, right? Some people feel like some of these stocks aren't ever coming back. Some folks feel like these stocks are going to take several years to get back. But nonetheless, even if these stocks had an incredible month, like, they're still going to be down so much, it's hard to even like comprehend these sorts of numbers, right? Look at a stock like Netflix, for instance, right? If this stock went up 100% and the stock price doubled in the month of June, that would put this stock at $380 a share. Well, at $380 a share, this stock would still not even be back to where it was just 2 months ago. Think about that for a moment. Let that sit in, right? And so nonetheless, I think it's very important to understand, like, we got a long way to climb here, right? The second thing I think you have to consider is, forward Ps are down massively in regards to these stocks. Now, there's a lot of debates on when it comes to forward Ps if, these companies will be as profitable as expected or not as profitable based upon if there's a recession or not. And we're going to talk about recession in just a moment. And if we're going to have a small recession, no recession, medium recession, or huge recession, we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But there's a lot of debate if these numbers are real or whatnot, right? When it comes to forward Ps, because you're forecasting out the next 12 months. But nonetheless, regardless of whichever way you want to slice it and dice it, forward Ps are among the lowest we've seen at any point in the past 20 plus years on smalls and mids specifically. Large are not quite there yet, but smalls and mids are. They just are. And so those sorts of stocks, are extremely, extremely undervalued. And I mean extremely undervalued. So even if the market started to come back big for smalls and mids, they're still going to be undervalued. That's what I can guarantee. Like at the end of June, those stocks will still be undervalued for anybody that has a long-term outlook for those sorts of companies. Okay. Next thing I think you have to consider is the sentiment on the stock market has been unbearably, no pun intended, unbearably bearish, right? No one believes in the stock market for the next 6 months. Well, I shouldn't say no one. Technically, almost 20% of investors believe in it. That's like nothing, okay? 53.5% of investors are bearish on the market the next 6 months, okay? Now, why that is so vitally important for you to look at that number and understand something is we're at a place right now, a moment in time in the market when there's been so much negativity thrown at this market. We are almost at peak possible negativity. Think about what the market's thinking about. Recession. Inflation's going to stay high forever. The Fed's not going to help, and they're going to keep raising rates, right? Earnings are deteriorating, are going to fall apart. We've got a crypto crash on our hands. We got real estate crash coming. There's been so much thrown at the stock market that the overwhelming populace out there is bearish on this market, right? And so just imagine for a moment the sentiment starts to shift from about as bearish as you can ever, like I've been doing this for 14 years. This is about the bearish. Actually, right now, it's important to understand. Right now, the stock market is more bearish than when I started in the stock market at the end of 2008. Think about that for a moment. We are more bearish right now as an investor group than we were when I got in the market in 2008. How insane. The market's more bearish right now than it was in March of 2020. Let that sink in for a moment, right? So we are at this ultra level of skepticism in the market, belief that the stock market is just going to go down and you got to be bearish for the next 6 months. So what happens if the sentiment starts to change a little bit, right? Well, if the sentiment starts to change, then people start to buy. They stop to be as bearish, right? And those shorts end up covering, those shorts go long. And so this is something to consider if you're thinking about a rally that goes past June. If we were to have this ripper rally that some folks are talking about in June, and you're thinking about a continuation, like we've basically had about everything thrown at the market in terms of fear. Now the question is, do all those things come true? Do all those things come true that the market is priced in as far as fear? Does the massive recession come true or not? Does the real estate crash come true or not? Does unemployment fly high or not? Does inflation stay high forever and ever, or is that not true, right? So now we got to actually have all these things that is baked into the market. It all has to play out in reality, right? And what if one of those things doesn't play out? What if two of those things don't play out? What if none of those things play out? These are some things to consider here, right? So the sentiment is about as bearish as you'll ever find. And, we're going through one of those time periods right now, right? Now, when going into this year, back in January, I did a video said I'm preparing for recession. In that video, I went into why I think there's going to be a recession in the back half of 22. Okay. Now, here's the thing I didn't tell you in that video, right? And here's the thing other people aren't telling you that basically are predicting that there's going to be a recession. No one's saying this one thing. Okay. That one thing is, how big is the recession going to be? Are we talking a small recession? Are we talking a medium recession? Are we talking a gigantic recession like we had in 08, 09, right? Where you had unemployment climb to ultra high levels, when you had massive amounts of people lose their jobs, when you had massive amounts of people foreclose and short sale on their homes, right? When you had credit completely dry up, and when we almost thought we were going to lose the entire financial system. Are we talking about that sort of recession? Or are we talking about like a miniature version of that? Or are we talking about it's not even remotely close to that? It's just maybe unemployment climbs a little bit, GDP gets a little bit weak for, a quarter or two, and, or maybe 3 quarters, and then, that's kind of that, right? And maybe real estate prices go down, but it's not like a crash. That's a possibility, right? If you put me on the spot in this situation. Now, first off, as this year has gone along, I'm more and more confident we're headed toward recession. But if you had to put me on the spot and you said, what type of recession do you think we're going to have if we're going to have this recession, Jeremy? I would say probably a small to medium. It is very hard for me to predict an 08, 09 recession. And the reason being is you need real estate to completely collapse. And I'm not just talking about sales of real estate. I'm talking about pricing. I'm talking about markets like I live in Vegas, to fall 50% plus. Is it a possibility? Sure, but I say it's a pretty darn low probability of that extreme of a real estate crash. You need, in order to be comparable with 08, 09, we need there to be fear that JP Morgan is going to go out of business, that Bank of America is going to go out of business, that Wells Fargo is going to go under, right? Can we get to that sort of level of skepticism, pessimism? Probably not. And the reason being is we know the Fed will do whatever it takes to make sure everything stays afloat. And so that becomes a bit of a far-fetched tale, right? So these are definitely some things to consider. And, I think if, anybody's out there predicting recession, I think it should come along with, well, what type of recession, once again, are we kind of even talking about here, right? Now, next thing you got to consider is how, you got to understand, like, people think if a bunch of stocks sell off, right, that money's just goes, like it just vanishes or something. It's not true at all. If I sell out of a stock, right, that money goes into cash. Or what could end up happening is I end up putting that money into something else. So let's say I sell Apple stock. Maybe I sell Apple stock and I go buy Chevron stock, or I buy ExxonMobil stock, right? And so the money doesn't just disappear. And so what is extremely, extremely important for everybody watching this video to understand here is the money has not disappeared. The money has gone other places. Some to cash, some to, maybe treasuries if people want to do that thing, right? But look at, it's gone to certain stocks. Telecom, look at T-Mobile, look at AT&T stocks like that. Look at the healthcare stocks. How good this is a year to date for these stocks. Look at insurance companies, right? Look at aerospace companies. Look at tobacco companies. Look at energy stocks, right? Look at these moves. Chevron, 50%. ExxonMobil, 58% year to date. You want to talk about a bubble. Looking a little bubblicious in the energy sector, okay? That's what I'll say about that. Utilities have been pumping like it's nobody's business, right? And so what you got to understand is that's not sustainable long term, right? No one wants to hide out in these stocks forever. The money's hiding there now, but that money's going to end up eventually rotating. And the big question is, when does that money start to rotate? Is it June? Is it 3 months from now? Is it 6 months from now? Is it 12 months from now? We know at some point here, that money's going to start to rotate. That money's not staying in oil and gas stocks forever. I can promise you that. The money's not staying in tobacco stocks forever. Okay, I promise you that. The money's not going to hide out in utilities. That's a hiding spot for the short term for people, right? They want to go to wherever is the safe place. And sometimes a safe place is cash for folks. And sometimes it's other places, okay? And so that's very important. That's not going to stay like that forever, right? The next thing you got to consider here is the rate of increase of inflation finally broke trend and dropped in the month of April. I think there's a very high probability that the rate of increase of inflation is going to go down again in May, okay? That will be 2 straight months. Then what happens? How does a market react if it happens a 3rd month in a row? right? And so this is something to consider if you're thinking about selling out of all your stocks at some point in June, right? Is you got to look at this and you got to say the market's been so worried about inflation, and inflation is just going to soar forever and ever, right? And stay insanely high. But if all of a sudden everybody kind of brushed this off for the market, like, oh, it's just 1 month inflation drop. Wait till next month, it's going to be right back up. But once again, what if all of a sudden next month it's in the 7s? What if the following month it's in the 6s? Right? What if the following month it's in the 5s? Then all of a sudden the whole inflation is going to go up forever and stay insanely high. That narrative goes away, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, inflation's moderating, which simultaneously means what? The Fed can take a step back. The Fed can take a step back at that point and maybe go from maybe sucking money out of the system to maybe helping the system if the economy is in any sort of financial troubles at that time, right? And they don't have to be so aggressive with raising interest rates and the commentary that's come out of the Fed, right? So that's a very important thing to consider there, right? Now, this next part is very important as well. So everybody's rents have been going insane. They will likely continue to go insane in 2022, right? But what no one's talking about right now that will become a subject, I could promise you, in 3 months from now, 6 months from now. It's always my job to kind of keep you guys, before you hear it on mainstream, I always like to tell you guys about what you're going to hear on the mainstream 3 months out, 6 months out. Kind of like inflation. I was talking about this in early 2021. Mainstream didn't pick up that till like the middle to end of 2021, right? So what's going to end up happening here is rents are likely not going to increase in any substantial way in 2023. And the reason being is home prices are about to go down. Now, once again, I'm not going to predict like, Vegas market's going to go down 50%, Phoenix is going to go down 50% or something like that. But what I am very confident in is home prices are about to go down, okay? New home sales for the home builders are going to dry up. So if the home builders want to build any homes or have any hope, they're going to need to drop prices, okay? Not just that. There's a flood of inventory starting to come on the market, okay? I'm seeing this firsthand, and folks are going to get desperate and they're going to start dropping prices. And I'm already starting to see it play out. The hottest markets you'll see first, and then it'll be the rest of the country, okay? So look at markets like Phoenix, look at markets like Vegas, look at some markets even in Texas. Look at markets like that first, okay? And what you're going to see is a trend play out there where folks start cutting price, and then you'll see that across the entire United States of America, right? Now, what that means is in 2023, rent increases. Good luck getting your rent increases because people will go other places. Whereas this past year, people didn't have a choice because everybody was able to just skyrocket their rents. Well, even a person like myself, right? I'm trying to sell a house right now. Ain't no way that house is getting sold. So I'm going to likely end up turning that into, guess what? A rental. Okay. And so you're going to have way more inventory come on the market for rental, and you won't be able to justify your rent increases because more than likely your real estate is going down in price over the next 6 to 12 months. I'd almost guarantee you that. If there was a bet I could make on that, I would make that bet. Look at this. The multifamily sector, think apartment buildings and things like that, right, is in the midst of a construction boom right now. Basically, there's $116 billion in new project volume that was started in 2021. That's up 25%. Guess why everybody wants to all of a sudden build multifamily? Well, because the rents are insane right now. So, yeah, everybody always lags in these things. So all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's spend. Let's build a new apartment complex. Believe me, I see it all over Vegas. Vegas, we got apartment complexes going up everywhere right now, okay? All that inventory is about to hit the market. When all the inventory hits the market, you got to fill up your apartment complex, right? All of a sudden you got 300 new apartments. You got to fill that baby up. And you're coming in at a time when the demand's likely not going to be there. So all of a sudden they got to fight for other people. So guess what it comes down to? Price. Even if you got the best amenities, you're still got to meet the price to get people to come over to your apartment complex, right? So this is something that's very, very important that no one's even looking at right now. Now, we could even be in I don't want to call it necessarily a bubble when it comes to multifamily, but it's definitely a possibility because it's been such easy money. It's like, oh my gosh, I can make so much money if I just build a dang apartment complex, man. This is amazing. Yeah, we'll see how amazing it is next year. Alrighty. Now, next thing to remember here is oil and gas prices have been going insane. Everybody knows that. That's why there's been so much money flooding into the oil stocks, right? And gas stocks. Well, we just spoke about it with apartments. When the money's flooding, then everybody wants in that game. So all of a sudden oil prices are sky high. So guess what? Everybody that possibly wants to get in the oil game right now is getting in. They want to frack, they want to get the rigs going, do whatever it takes, right? Produce, because you can make bank right now. So guess what's been happening to oil rig count? It has been skyrocketing from 400 something now to 557 recently. We're likely going over 600 soon when it comes to rig count, and we'll end up going to likely multi-year highs this summer, okay? And so we're at a situation here where oil price will end up coming down after this summer. It could even happen in the back half of this summer. I think we can run hot probably for another maybe month or two. Let's say 1 to 3 months maybe we can run hot for oil, and then we'll start coming down. And once again, the supply will just continue to be increased. Everything's going to calm down as far as all that whole situation goes. And then all of a sudden we're going to be in a situation where oil price and gas prices start coming down. And what happens to inflation, right, when oil and gas starts coming down? Guess what? That ends up obviously being a situation that, helps the inflation rate look not nearly as bad, right? And so when I look at all this in 2022, this is why I just remain to stay very, very focused on my objectives, right? And what I'm trying to do in the market. And what I'm trying to do is definitely not try to time in and out and I'm going to sell all my stocks this month and I'll buy back in this month and I'll sell out of this month and I'll buy back in this month. Because I know that's a losing game. I know that's not a game I'm willing to play. My game is simple. I see stocks I love. I buy those stocks, okay? If we get some insane rally, then maybe I could cash up a little bit. That doesn't mean selling stocks, but what that means is maybe not buying as heavily, right? And so I'm perfectly fine with that. But if we don't get that, I'm just going to continue to take advantage of deals that I see in the market, and there's a whole lot of deals. I've never seen this many good deals since December of 2018, but right now, there's way more deals than December of 2018, that I will say. And so that's what I stay focused on. And once again, this is just so you guys can consider if you are thinking about selling, if we have some sort of big rally in June or July. This is just so you have some things to consider. If you're going to really make that move, you've thought it all the way through and you've considered what could happen on the other side. And as somebody that's been in the market for a long time, the worst feeling for me personally is not going down on stocks. That happens all the time. That's something I'm willing to accept a long time ago. I was willing to accept that back in like 2009. I was like got over that mentally, that hurdle of like going down in a position. Thing that would hurt me the most is selling out of stocks at extremely cheap prices, because I think I might be able to buy it back in 3 months from now or 6 months from now cheaper. That's just usually a losing game. Every once in a while, it's like, oh man, I could have done it, right? I should have sold out 6 months ago. That would have been smart. Hindsight's always perfect. And there's been a lot more money that's been lost. People trying to sell and then buy back and sell and buy back. And it just leads to even worse decisions and worse decisions. And it leads you down that rabbit hole of trying to make short-term decisions with your long-term wealth. That's not good. Hope you guys enjoy this as always. Much love. If you're looking to join my private stock group, the private Discord chat, you want to become a member in there, check out the description area, and have a great day.